we spent the past couple of years in a crazy hot market. Louisville home sales decline as demand outpaces supply. Effective communication is at the core of any situation. If you master these two ideas, you'll have a chance of being successful at residential real estate marketing. I think you need to be looking for investment opportunities that move the needle. The market will never crash if demand exceeds supply. This is what I've been telling you all along.
This is the Jay Pitts Show. And we're back, folks. Welcome back to the Jay Pitts Show. I'm your host, Jay Pitts, here with co-host Ryan Harris, fresh off the Bellarmine Athletics Golf Scramble Championship. Thought we'd open the show with that. Pretty exciting.
I'm actually 2 for 2 in those.
Two for two in those?
I've only played in 2 since graduating, so 6 years ago now at this point.
And we're back, folks. Welcome back to the Jay Pitts Show. I'm your host, Jay Pitts, here with co-host Ryan Harris, fresh off the Bellarmine Athletics Golf Scramble Championship. Thought we'd open the show with that. Pretty exciting.
I'm actually 2 for 2 in those. I've
2 for 2 in those?
I've only played in 2 since graduating, so 6 years ago now at this point. Played it the first year after graduating, won it at Audubon.
Well, that was probably a time when you were playing the best golf of your life, right? Because, you finished your senior year pretty hot.
Yeah.
I remember, we had already met and we had talked about you becoming an agent. And you might have even already been in real estate classes. I don't know.
I think
but then I
had my license already when I graduated.
Yeah. But, the NCAA tournament was or the regional or what have you was pretty late. Right. And I remember watching and following.
Well, it's after school.
Yeah. And I remember following and you were in the lead, after day 2 maybe?
Yeah. I was winning about 2 after the second day and then blew up the last day. But
well, that's okay.
It is what it is.
We can't bring our best game to the course every day.
No. Especially when you were never the person ever in the lead.
Pretty good way to go out, though. Pretty good story. I've got an interesting story to the end of my college career. I was pretty dejected with baseball. I had a good freshman year, had a tough sophomore and junior year, had a very good senior year. But I was pretty dejected at the end, and I wasn't even sure I was going to go back. I thought I might end my career after my junior year. My wife and I were dating at the time. We were making plans for after I graduated, was thinking about career, wanted to start working and get a jump start. That spring of your senior year, I shouldn't have been in any rush, right? Because what we know now and what everyone finds out is that you have the rest of your life to work, right?
Yeah.
And those last few months are pretty awesome if you can enjoy them. But anyway, I did not leave baseball. I stayed, and I made essentially the mental commitment, which the fortitude and everything was always there. I just didn't understand it. I was too immature to understand it. But I was like, okay, if I'm going back, I'm all in. And I worked harder than I ever had, with really no real chance to play pro ball. I don't think. Maybe I probably could have went and played independent ball somewhere.
It's not a very fun life, though, is it?
No, it's a terrible life. But I had no illusions I was going to get drafted, right? I had a very mediocre sophomore and junior year after a decent freshman year, and ended up was pretty much in the driver's seat to be first team all conference catcher. My senior year, I was hitting 350, which doesn't sound crazy good. It's not bad, but it doesn't sound crazy good for college baseball. But what you have to understand is we were Division II at the time, and Bellarmine played in one of 2 wooden bat conference leagues nationwide. So not only did we have to hit with wooden bats at the height of the gorilla ball era, right, where bats were just hot as fire, but we had to switch back and forth between aluminum and wood mid-season because you'd have a midweek non-conference game, and to compete, you would have to play with the better bat, the aluminum bat that was hot, but then switch back for a conference game that weekend, which is really hard to do, frankly. So anyway, long story short, I was hitting about 350 late in the season, and we played our last Wednesday conference doubleheader at Northern Kentucky, and I took a throw from right field in the very beginning of the first game of the doubleheader, and I had the index finger outside the catcher's mitt. Now they make a sleeve, like a leather sleeve that goes over.
They make a sleeve for everything.
Right. Well, of course, yeah, baseball's funny like that. But yeah, there's a little sleeve on the catcher's mitts now that if you want, you can. A lot of people still go over top of it, but my finger was exposed. And kid sliding into home, I tag him out, and metal spike right across the knuckle, and I had 9 stitches across my knuckle. This was 3 days before my final 4 college games of my career.
So that was it?
No, I saw a surgeon. The tendon or ligament or whatever wasn't severed. It was nicked. They sewed me up. They put me in a splint, and they cleared me to play, but I couldn't catch. I couldn't literally squeeze my finger, but I could hit with my index finger extended, which was so awkward. But I literally went 0 for 16 my last 4 games of my career. And my batting average dropped from like 350 something to like 309. And I made second team all conference. Should have made first team all conference.
Dang.
So, but it's a good story.
Yeah.
Right? It was still a great season. I ended my career on my terms.
It's nice they kept letting you bat after 0 for 10.
Well, I mean, you have to remember, I was hitting 350. I was hitting in the four hole. Like, I mean, baseball is one of those sports where you will go 0 for 10.
Yeah.
At points in the season.
Sure.
And you don't, like, it's like, you know, and I, in no way I'm comparing myself to someone this elite, but like, you know, Kobe says, shoot or shoot, right? You shoot your way through slumps. And that's like kind of the same thing with hitting. You got to keep hitting, right?
Yeah. While we're on baseball, just real quick, I saw a video about a guy testing wooden bats, and he did like the cheapest wooden bat you can get versus the most expensive, and some in the middle. It's like there's literally like not a difference.
Not much difference. Is it Bat Bros? Like the account's called Bat Bros?
Maybe.
So that dude's pretty awesome. He tests everything, which, you know, I've got a kid that plays USSSA baseball with, you know, the hottest bats that they use now. So like it's a big deal to what bat they use. So we follow him.
Did they do a wooden bat tournament every year?
Our kids do not. Man, 11's too young.
We used to do one a year. They were fun.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is...
But there'd be like, we'd have like 2 wooden bats for the whole team.
What people don't understand about, and probably some composite, like not composite metal, but composite wood, like Baum, B-A-U-M is a company that makes those. I used those for a time. That was my biggest issue with wood, was the inconsistency. So like you have different models from, like, say, Louisville Slugger. So a popular one is like the C271, right? That's a popular model wooden bat. But even like the consistency of wooden bats is not there. As good as they do in producing them, the balance, the weight ratio, and it's just slightly off. The handle's a little bigger on this one, the barrel's a little bigger on that one. You would think, because they put them on the same lathe and they turn them on the same machine, that it would be 100% consistent, but it's really not. Yeah. And so you feel different at the plate. Being a golfer, you can appreciate this. Feel is very important, right? It's the same way at the plate, you know, for a hitter in baseball. So that was a struggle for me, using wood bats, is the different feel. Now I'm sure at the major leagues they have better equipment, and playing D2 college baseball was not. But 11-year-olds, man, I'm telling you, and it's probably better in the 20 years it's been since I played that way. But yeah, 11-year-olds, they need to be able to swing the lightest thing that they can swing, because their muscles are still developing, and you don't want bad habits.
Yeah, cool.
So,
all right, man.
Let's get on the real stuff.
Let's get catch up. Yeah, let's get into the listener questions. Would you rather?
Nice.
We have a couple here.
Okay.
This first one. Would you rather have all your listings sell above asking price, or have all your buyers purchase homes below asking price?
Oh, easy. That's easy.
For this market. You
think it's easy for this market?
Well, I felt the decision. You're going to say, here's what I think you're going to say.
Okay. Sure. Go ahead. I'll put, okay, the first one is number 1, the second one is number 2, and I'm going to put the number behind my hand.
Well, I think,
and that way everybody knows.
Buyers purchase below asking price.
Okay. Why do you say that? And that is it, by the way.
I mean, there's a shortage of inventory, and buyers are having to compete still with all the good houses that go on the market at market price.
Mm-hmm. I got a couple of reasons. Number 1, if all your listings sell above listing price, that calls into question your ability to value listings. I think it is probably disingenuous to say that every agent who has a listing sell above list price did so strategically, right? Because it's the way to maximize activity. I think that's probably a little there's not much truth there.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say, like, right now, let's Highlands, for example. I'm going through this situation with some buyers of mine. They'll list a house for $600,000, and from what I can tell, that is the market price. There's just no homes available, so you get
So demand pushes
10
it.
people that look at it,
Demand pushes it north of 600.
and then they set a new comp for the whole area.
So here's I think, Ryan, the problem with that is you're looking at value in a static way, right? I think it is the good agent's job to factor in that level of interest and how in an ascending market, which is what you're describing. In an ascending market, it's up to an agent to be able to foresee that, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hold you to it, and I do think the market ultimately equalizes. And even with a slightly underpriced listing by an agent or a slightly under the correct list price recommendation, the market equalizes. It finds an equilibrium. But like, value's not static. Yes, okay, this is what the comps say it was for when the last comp sold.
Yeah.
But there has been time elapsed between then and now, and what has changed in that time frame is demand. And if demand has heightened or remained the same, then you can probably predict a slight appreciation in that period of time. What does that equate to? Now, you're not going to be perfect. Like, we can't predict the whims of individual buyers. And when you get two very motivated individual buyers competing against one another, that may be a 5% price increase instead of a 1% price increase. Whereas had you adequately predicted the market, you may have predicted a 1% increase from the last comp sale. So again, I'm not saying you're a bad agent, but it's when you say that every listing sells above.
Yeah.
When every listing sells above, I think that presumes that you're not pricing effectively.
Yeah. So, I think when I think about myself, I'd say I'm pretty aggressive on pricing on the higher end when it's a house I know is going to show well and get showings no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, if you list it within this $50,000 range, like,
Yeah.
it's going to get showings. And
For
I'm
sure.
a fan of listing on the higher end. And I've done it a lot in the past year, and it's worked out. Like, I'll say we might not sell for asking price originally, but I still think we sell for more than we would have if we listed it at what market price says it is.
I think there's
and the appraisals have come in fine every time.
Yeah. Well, again, it's the appraiser's job to understand how the market moves. I mean, the biggest indicator of value is literally what a buyer is willing to pay for it. Like a qualified, educated buyer. If a qualified, educated buyer says, I'm going to buy this for 5% more than the last comp sold for 3 months ago, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
Period. Okay? The appraiser working for the bank is the biggest challenge to true market value that exists. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I should probably say that again. Right? So the appraiser as an employee, essentially, or as a contract or a service provider to the bank, protecting the bank's interest in not lending too much money against that property is probably the greatest challenge to true market value being realized. So understanding that fact, most appraisers don't want to be that, right? So they find a way to justify it, even if it's with the narrative that they have to write that goes along with the empirical data. They explain to the underwriter at the bank that this is the way the market's moving. So again, back to the pricing conversation, I just think it's every listing, right? Like, there is absolutely a time for that, right? And I believe with really great marketing, with really great media production, okay, then you should be aggressive, right? That's different in my mind than aspirational pricing, which we always kind of say is not what you should do. And I think it's just, again, a matter of degree, right? If you're listing 20% too high.
Well, there's aspirational and there's aggressive. And
There
I
you
like
go.
to say aggressive.
Two different things. There's nuance to everything.
It's aspirational when the house isn't perfect.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if a house is perfect and it shows well and it will be seen and there's plenty of buyers in the market at that price point, there's all sorts of calculations to do. But when all that's the truth, I tell my sellers, I'm trying to price as high as possible and still get showings, because if we can't get showings, we're not going to get offers.
Yeah.
right? It's kind of the way I look at an opening offer.
That's a great way to look at
from
it.
a buyer.
Yeah.
From a buyer, the opening offer should be as low as you can possibly make it without offending the seller. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if what you do is so low that it offends the seller and you don't get a counter, or you get, a disingenuous counter, then you've not made any progress. So I think that's the way. So, okay. My second reason for choosing buyers under list. So first was, I don't want to be the agent that lists everything that sells above. I'd rather be the agent that sells everything below. Number two here is it speaks to my ability to help my client negotiate. Also, beyond that, it puts my clients in a position where they're buying property presumably below market value, and it makes them in a better place to be able to sell in the future when they look to upgrade or downsize or whatever, right? It helps them build equity faster. So inherently, doing a better job for your clients means you get to do it more often.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Going back real quick, if you're going to go with this aggressive pricing like we're talking about, we've talked about it before, you better set the expectations with the clients that we might get you more money doing this, but it's going to take a little longer.
Might take longer.
And
it's usually proportional.
if you're not okay with that, we should probably list a little lower, but if you're fine waiting, probably is going to pay off in the long run.
And they may say to you, Ryan, what do you mean by that? It's going to take a little longer. And you say, well, the average sale in this neighborhood is this price, and on average it takes this long to do. So if we're going above, the market price, and we need to end up dropping 2% on the list price, ultimately through negotiations or price reductions to get it sold, well, that may extend your marketing cycle by an additional 30 days, an additional 2 weeks. And they may say, no, I'm not ready for that. Or they may say, let's go. The money's worth the time to me.
Yeah.
Just like you said.
And usually $10,000-$20,000 is worth the time to
to a lot of people it is. To a lot of people it very much is.
All right, cool. Here is the next question.
Okay.
Would you rather?
Okay.
Another would you rather. So, would you rather have all your clients always be on time for showings, or never have a client ghost you again? So you can either have...
I'd rather them be late than not show up.
Yeah.
I'd rather them be late than not show up. I mean, I'd rather lose 10 minutes than lose an hour round trip, right? Because, Louisville's not the worst in terms of traffic, but, I think people in Chicago and D.C. and L.A. would laugh at us, Atlanta. They would laugh at us if we complained about our traffic here, because it's not bad, all things considered. But, half an hour is about what you probably estimate it takes to get most places in this city, just so you're not late. So if you spend a half an hour getting somewhere and it takes you a half an hour to get back to wherever you were, that's an hour lost versus 15 minutes when they're running behind.
Let me ask you this. I know you don't do this much anymore, if at all, but when you're scheduling 5 or 6 showings in a row for a client, how did you used to schedule those to keep it all in line? Okay,
so this is interesting. So I'm showing actually right after we record this today, which I don't show a ton of houses anymore, but I do some here and there. And you're right, I don't do the day of showing 8 to 10 properties. But I don't think many people do that anymore because there's just not enough inventory still to be able to do that.
Somebody coming in town.
It's starting to get better, getting back to that a little more with slightly more inventory hitting the market, but we're not there yet. So here's what I did. I would, before showing time, had the showing cart or whatever that allowed you to plot your route. You can plot up to 10 stops on a Google Maps. And I would usually do it there. And that's how I would get my order together. And just make sure I'm being efficient, in my path throughout the city. And then I would start scheduling the first one, and I would schedule, let's say my first one's at 10 a.m. I'm going to schedule that 10 to 11, maybe 10 to 10:30, actually, in the first one. And then my second showing would be 10:30 to 11:30. I would ask a 1 hour block. And you probably don't need the 1 hour block for the second showing. But your third, fourth, and fifth, you definitely need a 1 hour block. And then I would overlap them by 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So I go 10:30 to 11:30. My third showing would be 11 to 12. My fourth showing would be 11:30 to 12:30. And so I'm overlapping 2 appointments by a half an hour, so that if we get to the first one and they're like, no, screw this, I'm out, like, we could just leave. We don't have to spend any time there. Probably got 10 minutes killed by that point, 20 minutes to get to the next one. If they're in the same neighborhood, I may not do it quite as much, and that does happen. But I would always overlap the showings by a half an hour, and I would do 1 hour blocks.
Yeah. I'd tell you it's the most annoying thing is when you get your route laid out in showing time ready to go, but that one showing in the middle doesn't have the time available.
Yeah.
And like you're like, okay, how do I rework this now? What time do they have available? And
It's like a
you
puzzle.
figure it out. But
You usually do. And the technology is much better now than it used to be.
I just call the agent a lot of times like, hey, do you just mind if we try to squeeze in
Hey,
here?
I'm just going to squeeze in.
And here's another thing. I do not mind overlapping showings at all.
No, I allow overlapping showings on my listings pretty much exclusively, unless there is a significant reason why we shouldn't, which I don't even know what that would be. Maybe a security issue at the house, maybe a lot of valuable artwork or something that's there, and you don't want 20 people there at a time. Because if it is a hot listing and you allow overlapping showings, there will be 3 or 4 or 5 sometimes go at once. I think agents need to deal with it. I think clients need to deal with it. I do understand that it is a possibility that some buyers may get spooked and say, no, there's too much competition, I'm out. And I would hate that for the seller if that was the one, but we have no way of knowing. And I don't see how you can. I think it's a greater risk that if you have 5 people that want to see the house within a 2-hour window, and you know you're going to have to say no to 3 of them so that the other 2 can get in. Mm-hmm. Well, you're making an active choice to alienate 3 buyers where
You don't.
the alternative is you may be making a passive choice at offending 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I don't see that balancing. So that's always been my way.
And I would say, like, for the most part, on overlapping showings I've gone on lately, the agents are all super nice and good with it and gives everybody space. But there are sometimes those agents that are just assholes.
Yeah.
And will, like, try to close the door on you or lock it. Like, hey, I got a showing scheduled. I'm coming in here. Like,
Yeah, and I'm going to ring the doorbell.
it's a good time. I will tell you this, too. It's a good time to show your clients, like, you're with them. Like,
Yeah.
if you need to get a little, like, passive-aggressive with another agent, like,
A little forceful.
not because you want to, but just like, hey, like, we're coming in
We're
here.
scheduled. You're going to let us in.
Yeah.
This is not your house.
Like,
You have no right to keep
It's
us
a
out.
good time to show your clients you're all about it.
Yeah. Well, it's usually the crazier agents that have an issue with it. Like the ones that are good to deal with, they understand.
Yeah.
You know, your clients are adults. You're an adult. Like, let's act like adults. Like, we can exist under the same roof for 10 minutes so that we can look around and see if we have interest in this property. It's kind of crazy to be quite honest.
It is. But all right, that's the would you rathers for the week.
All right, cool.
Let's move on. So let's talk about fixtures in
Okay.
a house. So like take it or leave it. You know,
Yeah.
these can get kind of a lot of arguments can be caused over these. So just to start out, how do you identify a fixture, Jay? Like a seller asks you, hey, what is a fixture?
Yeah.
What can we take? What can we leave?
Well, okay, so essentially anything attached permanently, that doesn't mean it can't be, unattached. And that attached is an actual technical term in real estate, right? Real estate is attached to the ground, right? A mobile home that is not on a permanent foundation is not attached. It's a it's not a permanent fixture to that real estate. It's not permanently affixed to the real estate. Now, a mobile home, you can take the hitch off. You can, set the piers in concrete foundation. You can do a perimeter foundation under it. And you can do something called an affidavit of affixation with the courthouse that makes it real estate, okay? Similarly, anything attached to that dwelling that is attached to the ground is a fixture. So, for example, and I'll give you a famous mistake I made in my career that cost me a couple $1,000. There was a hot tub. The hot tub, in my opinion, was not affixed at the time. But really, it was only simply because the hot tubs I had seen in the past had a different setup, and I didn't take the time to ensure that this hot tub had the same setup as ones I'd seen prior. This hot tub was hardwired to the panel. It was not plugged in any way, shape, or form. I had seen, hot tubs with more of a 220 plug, like a dryer or another large appliance, if you will. So in that situation, because it was hardwired, the buyer was aware and assumed it would remain, and the seller was not prepared to leave it. So ultimately, the seller, I was fortunate the seller didn't have much use for it at their new place. They were just simply going to sell it. So I basically bought it for the buyer, out of my commission, which is fine. It was a mistake I made. It happens. But, we see this. There's some usual suspects that we end up having this discussion about. We have it about TV mounts. Okay.
Yep.
A TV mount, a TV itself is plugged into the wall, and plug into a receptacle does not equal a fixture.
Correct.
But the mount is bolted into the studs. Mm-hmm. That is a fixture. Okay. Lighting, fixture. Drapes, not a fixture. They hang on a rod. Rods, fixture.
Yep.
So,
What about mirrors?
What's that?
Mirrors.
Well, it depends on how they're affixed. Are they furniture mirrors that are hung, or are they glued to the wall? Because you see beveled edge, new construction type mirrors that are larger that were, glued to the back, to the drywall. Those are absolutely fixtures. But a furniture mirror that is in a frame and hanging on a hook is not.
Now, you take that one with you. Do you have to take the nail or screw out?
You don't necessarily. It depends. Now, I believe if large holes are left, that a spackle and spot paint, a spackle of sand and spot paint is the courteous thing to do. Whether it is required or not, I think, is up for debate. The contract says you receive the property as you viewed it. Okay. Presumably those holes were in the walls behind the photos or the photos hanging on the wall, or the furniture mirror that you didn't pull to see behind. And presumably the buyer should expect some holes. It is the courteous thing of the seller to do to remove them, or to ask whether they want them removed, and subsequently to have large holes patched and painted, spot painted. But it really comes down in most transactions to the communication between agents. What is the expectation that the buyer has? What is the expectation of the seller that the seller do prior to closing? But again, I mean, that's the rub on most things. Like, is it permanently wired? Is it permanently affixed? That doesn't mean that a light fixture can't be taken down, but the average person does not want to unwire a light fixture. Now, I hang light fixtures. I'm fine with that, but that doesn't mean everybody is.
Yeah.
All
right, here's one. So obviously a security camera system that's hardwired is a fixture.
Yeah.
What if it's like one of those Ring cameras that's you have to charge and you can slip out and take it inside?
So mine, okay. So I have a brick home that has an intercom, an old intercom that's pretty large, recessed into the brick. That is where low voltage electricity is, the only place near the front door. And I could have possibly pulled it and used the low voltage electric to hardwire my Ring camera. Okay. Had I done so, it would be a fixture and it would remain. But the Ring doorbell is very narrow and the intercom is much wider. So I would have had to figure out some sort of way to fill the gap in the brick. So I didn't do it. I affixed the Ring doorbell camera to the front door, the door slab. The bracket, the mounting bracket is screwed in. and the Ring camera clicks into place and is affixed with a small screw to adjust it underneath. That's not a fixture, in my opinion, right? It would be more akin to a picture hanging on the wall. So, but again, communication is where this needs to go, right?
Yeah.
So I think it depends on the agents. It depends on the buyer and the seller's expectations. Cool. That's a dicey one. But my flood camera over my garage that's hardwired, absolutely a fixture. So here's your job as a seller. If you want to keep those things, you have to take them down before you show the house.
Yeah. Here's one. So you have buyers buying a house. Do the sellers have to remove a swing set if you don't ask them to, or a playground?
No, you don't. I don't think. I mean, it's personal property, so the buyer should not expect it to remain. But if there is a line in our contract, and I believe it to be a good one, a very, very good clarifying option for the contract is that what are we to remove?
Yeah.
What is to remain by your request, and what is to be removed by your request? And if it's not there, I don't see how a buyer can expect it to be gone. Now, these things will always come up at the last minute, and you will always end up with broken pieces of a swing set in the back of your truck because you were the only one that could possibly solve this problem. You know, you run over with a wrench and or a sledgehammer, and you take the thing down, and it ends up in your trunk, and you throw it in my dumpster out behind the office. Like, that's always going to happen.
Yeah. It doesn't have to, though, if you just think of it while you're there and once you've been in it long enough.
The better communication, but, unfortunately, here's what happens. Agents are not good because they're not experienced in the beginning, so they don't think of it. So they end up giving extra effort and money to solve problems at the last minute. And then they become good as they have experience and they start to solve these problems. And they become so good that they become really busy. And then they miss these things because they're too busy, and they end up solving the problem themselves again. So that's the life cycle of a real estate agent. Yeah. So the next step is they have a team, and then they get to teach agents to make the same mistakes and then how to fix them all over again.
Yeah, I'd say for the most part, real estate is one of those things where if you're paying attention, you probably won't make the same mistake twice, or you shouldn't at least.
No, I agree.
Some people do.
Some people do, but rarely. I mean, but again, busyness is very challenging. So like this goes to like the theory of real estate agents, right? Like, how much business is too much, right? Like we're naturally very competitive people, ambitious people, I think, as a career, as a set of people that go into this career. So there's a moment in time where you absolutely do your best work, right? And you're not so busy that you can't do your best work.
Yeah.
But what that does is bring you more opportunities. And so if you're doing 95% of your best work extended over twice as many clients as wherever you peaked, I think that's still a value add, right? If you can do 30 deals a year and you're at 100% on game, but then you can do 60 deals at 95%, you're still substantially impacting people's lives for the positive and doing more good. Yeah. So I think that's the choice that most make.
I had to call a title company late last week because I have like 4 contracts there, and I had to be like, all right, which ones do I do title sheets for? Like, I think I've done all of them, but I might be missing one. I don't know which one.
Which one don't you have? And I'll do that one.
Can you like look through these and just tell me which one I need to do?
The good thing is title companies really want more business, and they're always willing to help in situations like that.
Yeah, I just had a title company try to charge $200 to research the HOA, and I was like, in the notes, we're not okay with this. Here's the website to the HOA. All the info you need's there. This is what it costs a year. This is what it's for. We're not okay with you charging the seller $200.
Yeah. Well, again, another good way to show your client you're on their side.
I mean, that's $200.
It's crazy.
And also, I mean, when I look at these title sheets and there's a administration fee, I just can't believe there's people out there that charge administration fees.
It is crazy. It's like, if it's commission, just call it commission.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Don't charge people for the software you buy to run your business. That is not your client's.
It's not their expense. It's your expense.
It's yours. and it's your choice to buy that.
Technology fees. Yeah,
Here's something, man. So for Morning Brew, I saw this, just kind of caught my eye. Target will finally stop accepting personal checks from customers.
they accept checks still?
They stopped July 15th.
Wow.
Checks written by Americans. 1990, it was 19 billion. 2022, guess how many it was?
Less than one.
3.4 billion. Still more than I thought.
Still low.
I still see people like at the grocery store pulling a check out. I'm like, what? At Kroger? I'm like,
I
what
can't
are you
imagine
doing?
anybody taking a check anymore.
I do kind of like filling out a check sometimes. Something about it's like, even though you're paying for something, it's.
Do you ever go to the bank to deposit checks? Do you ever get checks? We don't write you commission checks, do we? We direct deposit it.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like when people ask for a check, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like I don't know where my checkbook is.
I know where mine is. Like,
I mean, it's in a drawer at home somewhere, but I don't care.
You still have to pay some, like, is it state taxes with the check or is it?
Oh yeah, well, but I have a business checkbook,
Right.
but like a personal checkbook. I mean, there's just too much. Like, if you pay off the balance of your credit card monthly, you pay a small service charge and no interest.
Yeah.
Right, and the points are pretty valuable, and so I just charge everything and then write it, really it's an ACH now. I pay via ACH the full balance of any credit card I have every single month.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know what I even do there, and we try really hard not to pay any interest. So like we have a reminder set and all that thing, but I also have like an auto pay set up because I don't know what the balance is going to be exactly every month. But we have an auto pay set up every month that goes through every month, no matter what, so that we don't forget to pay.
Oh, I'm set up on auto pay too.
Like I have like a budget, and I know pretty much what my personal credit card is going to be monthly. But there's some spending variance. You know, if we go on vacation this month, it's going to be a little bigger. So, but yeah, I pay the bulk of it through auto pay.
Anything I can do auto pay, I'm doing it.
Yeah, I do auto pay with credit card, but I'm talking about I have an auto pay set up for my bank account for my credit card bill. Every month,
Where your bank account pays your
my
credit.
bank account pays off the majority of my
that's
credit
what
card
I
bill.
do,
So
too.
whatever the minimum it's going to be each month, there's a payment set up for that.
Yeah.
And that way, the majority, even if I do catch a small amount of interest, it's only on the overage from the budget. Do you know what I mean? And we still notice it because we have a reminder set up and we go in and pay it.
Yeah.
So pretty wild, man.
But yeah, people aren't. Well, it just says kind of. This tweet said, "Crazy to watch a huge payment method die before our eyes."
Yeah, I agree. Like, what if credit cards just went away? I will say this. I can tell you.
I pay with my phone so much.
Apple Pay through your phone is like in Spain is what I do. I would do it some before, but everything is tap. I didn't want to get my credit card out of my pocket. Like where we were in Spain, there's a high rate of pickpockets. So like we had our phones like on tethers, and like I had my wallet in like a zipped pocket like the entire time. Mm-hmm. Because tourism's big, and unfortunately they just warn you there's a lot of pickpocketing. So I didn't want to be constantly getting in and out of my pockets. And so it's just boop. The phone, I mean, that's how we paid for like 99% of things. And I've continued it since I've been back.
So you didn't do it that much before?
I didn't really. I don't know why. Like I would just
It's so much
hand
easier.
the credit card.
Gas station, anywhere I'm at. Like
Yeah.
even restaurants, I've started asking, "Do you have Apple Pay?" And they're like, "Yeah, you just come up here."
Well, it's funny. We were talking about like winning the golf scramble yesterday. Like whatever I got was like $20 over, and they don't take tap. There's no tap. All they have is a swipe machine or a chip reader or something like that. So I had to go to the truck because I didn't have my credit card. I said, I was like, what?
with
like,
your
at the pro
shop credit.
Yeah, the pro shop. I paid a little. Whatever I got was $10 more. So
Yeah, I'd say even nice golf courses are a little archaic when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Right now, I haven't been to many that do tap to pay.
well, most of, I don't know that Lake Forest takes. I don't know. Everything I've ever had a guest buy has gone on my account. I don't even know if they take payments.
I bet
Like you
do.
can't.
I bet they
You
do.
cannot eat at the restaurant and pay for
Really?
your dinner. Yeah, it's on the member's account.
Huh? I didn't know that. It's not how Hurstbourne was, but
Yeah. Weird.
All right. What else do we have? Let's see here. U.S. homeowners are strong hands in this cycle. So this is an article from Resi Club, like we've talked about. There's just some interesting statistics in here. So mortgage-free homeowners, basically it's just talking like people who own a home. They're calling it the strong hands this cycle because people have low interest rates, and definition of strong hands is they'll hold that home through
So diamond
downturns.
hands. Diamond hands. This is like
Diamond hands for homes.
That's funny.
When really, I don't know if it's as much that as it is, it's just cheaper for us to own the home we have right now. But mortgage-free homeowners in 2010, 32.1% of homeowners were mortgage-free.
In 2010.
2010. And now, 2022, it's 39%. I think it went on, 2024, it's now 39% of U.S. homeowners are mortgage-free.
That's kind of crazy.
It's a lot.
Okay, and it was 22?
It was 32.
32, so it's up 7%.
2010.
Up
Yep.
7%, not up 17. Okay. Up 7%. I think I believe that.
I don't know, man. It's kind of walking around and knowing 4 of every 10 people I'm looking at
Don't have a mortgage.
don't have a mortgage. It's hard to believe.
How do you account for? I suppose it's just the primary residence, not an investment. Because I have investments with no mortgage, but I have a mortgage on my primary residence.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it says
about
homeowners,
that.
so I don't know what that means.
So another interesting statistic, 96% of homeowners in the U.S. have a fixed mortgage rate.
96%.
96.4%.
I don't.
I don't either.
I have an arm. I have a
Same.
10-year arm.
Yep.
But I mean, I got like 2.5%.
So, and I was they have a chart for other countries, and it's pretty much just the U.S. and France that have
Fixed mortgages.
fixed mortgages,
Yeah.
long-term fixed mortgages. So, Finland, for example, 95.4% have a variable rate up to 1 year fixed.
Wow.
And then,
So I'm curious to know what percentage of home ownership exists in these countries.
yeah,
Because I would imagine, here's what I would imagine. This is a hypothesis. Home ownership rates are substantially lower in other countries, in European countries, in Asian countries and cultures. Africa, I would say it's very slim. South America, much lower. I would say home ownership rates are much, much lower and reserved for the ultra wealthy. And I think it would be likely that a lot of the ultra wealthy don't have mortgages at all.
yeah, you're probably right. So, so another interesting thing, France, they don't have anybody from this chart, it looks like, that has short-term fixed. It's either long-term, over 10 years fixed, or medium-term, 5-year to 10-year fixed.
Okay.
Italy, 82.8% have a short-term fixed, 1 to 5 year.
Okay.
Interesting.
Interesting.
It's just like this chart is so different from every country to the U.S. and France.
Yeah.
And people want to complain about the U.S. housing market, but there's a reason it's as strong as it is.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, you want to talk about like the bedrock of an economy. Home ownership is definitely that. It's definitely that. And honestly, like, then it takes you to places like, how do we discuss pride in our country, right? Well, we own some of it.
Yeah.
Like when you own your home and it is a long-term prospect that the majority of people that achieve it don't go backwards from, right? That builds pride, I think.
Let me ask you this. What is your take on people who say you never actually truly own your home, even if you pay the
Because
mortgage
it's
off,
taxes?
because you have to pay property taxes, and if you don't pay those, they can take your house?
I mean, that seems kind of semantic. I mean, that seems really dumb that something as inexpensive as taxes are relative to the value of the asset, it would be very foolish to lose that asset. So if you pay off your mortgage, right, or you have no mortgage, and you lose your house because you fail to pay taxes, that's pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Just sell it. Sell it for less than it's worth so that you can actualize the value of that asset, not, I mean, it's just really, I don't know. I think it's dumb.
I've seen some people argue that once you pay your mortgage off, you shouldn't have to pay property taxes anymore.
You shouldn't have to pay property tax. See, I don't know. I mean, I could get behind a thing like school choice a lot more than I could getting rid of property tax. Like, that to me seems like a reform worthy of support where, you know, the parent and the child could use their tax dollars or a percentage of their tax dollars they pay to send the kid to go to school wherever they choose. But like, I mean, there's basic infrastructure required. I mean, your sewers, your water, your gas and electric, all those things. Some of them are privately held entities, but they're subsidized by the government. They don't exist without government subsidy, and property tax goes towards paying some of that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. A lot of property tax is apportioned for schools though. So again. You pay property tax when you're 80 years old, even though you don't have kids in school anymore. So, but there is a homestead exemption. I mean, there's ways that they have tried to make things more palatable. I don't know. I just think it's a bit tinfoil hatty to say, well, you don't really own anything.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I have the right to sell it.
I mean, I can see where they're coming from too, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't make.
I don't think your mortgage should have anything to do with whether you owe property tax.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what they've done is they've tried to counterbalance. Okay, hey, we use a lot of this for schools. And when you're 65 years old, you don't have kids in school anymore. So we give you a homestead exemption, which drastically reduces your property tax burden. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, cool. Only other statistic that kind of stood out to me from this article was 76% of U.S. mortgage borrowers have an interest rate under 5%.
Yeah.
And 22% have one under 3%.
Yeah, it's rate locked is what we've been calling it,
at
right?
the high end,
rate locked.
14.3% have a rate over 6%.
Yeah.
So,
and most of them have purchased in the last 18 months.
Yeah. If you're listening, you're an agent, and you hear any of these statistics, these are just good things to know. If people ask you stuff about the real estate industry, when people know you're a real estate agent, they're always going to ask you about it. And having statistics on just kind of cool facts or fun facts is better than just telling them it's good.
Oh, it's great.
Like,
we're doing good. I feel like you get two answers from agents. I got an interesting question yesterday. We were at the golf scramble, and somebody said, is housing doing any better now? Like, they were really concerned, and I was like, yeah, I mean, we're great. Like, we've never not been great. And I feel like it's one of those two. It's like when you ask an agent how the market is, it's either like, oh, it's awful, or I'm doing great. And like neither could be true, honestly. You know?
I feel like I would say something smart if somebody asked me, how's housing doing? I'd be like, I don't know. You have to ask the house.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, we are blessed to be in an industry that people are curious about. You know, because, I mean, if your business depended on conversations that were just, I don't know, so rare to come, it would be much harder to drive those interactions. But everybody wants to ask about it, so that's cool.
And it's also nice. It's one of those things I do think people understand it to a certain extent. Like, some people tell me what they do for work, and I'm like, dude, I have no idea what any of that means.
Yeah. But, I mean, what do they say? The world needs ditch diggers too, right? Like, everything needs to be I mean, there's lots of jobs that society needs, and I'm just glad that there are people out there willing to do it.
Absolutely.
You know?
Cool, man. That's all I have. You got anything for me?
No, I think we're good. We can wrap on that, but I do want to remind everybody about our Resource Live event on August 15th, 10 a.m., the Parklands at Floyd's Fork, the Geens Lodge. I am still registering agents. You must be an agent. We've got two great national speakers coming. Opening is Debbie Holloway, former #1 real estate agent in the city of Louisville. Tom Ferry team coaching, coach extraordinaire. She is now spending a little less time doing all that, but doing some speaking, and has been gracious enough to be in attendance and speak for us. Also, Jason Pantana will be keynoting that day. He is my personal coach and a great guy to know in the world of real estate. You know, all things tech, all things sales, just will be a ton of knowledge to share there. We're also doing a 5-agent panel. Will be a mixture of team leads and independent agents alike, very successful agents. Not quite ready to announce that panel just yet, but once we do, people will be very excited, I think. But the only way to get a ticket is to reach out to me directly and get an invite. I've been talking to a number of agents that we have cross-sold with that we really enjoy, but not doing any public marketing for this event. It costs absolutely nothing, and it is not a recruiting event. You will not receive any DMs, phone calls, robocalls, call center, scripted nonsense recruiting calls. You're not going to get any of that. You're not going to get on an email list. We will leave you be. We'd love you to come and get some knowledge. Just trying to give back to our real estate community that has been very good to us. So if you hear this, this is the only place we're putting it out. If you hear this and you want to attend, you got to DM Ryan or myself through any of our social channels, or if you have our number, feel free to reach out. But I will get you registered for that. But again, it's August 15th from 10 till about 1:30. We're going to feed you and fill you full of good knowledge. So would love to have you in attendance if you're an agent in the Louisville area. We've had a number of our listeners reach out already and graciously hope, we've got them signed up, and we just appreciate their support. So that's all I've got for today. You can find us on the socials at jpittsrealtor, at ryanharris.re. Sign up for, or let us know you'd like to be signed up for Resource Live. But for the J Pitts Show, that's all we got this week. We'll see you soon.
Peace.